Welcome to the Obvious Leadership Podcast, where we dive into practical leadership insights that are, well, obvious. Your hosts have walked the talk, and now they're sharing their knowledge, strategies, and advice. Let's jump into today's episode and explore the world of leadership with your hosts, Joey and Omar.
Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Obvious Leadership. I'm your host, Omar. We got Joey on the other line.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So we welcome y'all to a fun-filled discussion that we're going to have about just bringing others up, right? Bringing the team forward. Talking about, like, where do you get started? Like, what do you identify and those things, right? So it's definitely going to be fun. I think we got a lot of juicy stuff.
Oh, yeah, big time. But before we get started, guys, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, follow us, and make sure to comment. Let us know what you think and your thoughts are on today's episode. Joey and I were actually kind of chit-chatting a little bit earlier. And I'm going to say it, the issue that came about was, and obviously you see a bunch of videos online and they're all like staged for a purpose, right? And this video was a person getting mad at another person because they were being told to do something without being trained or shown what to do. And the person had no idea what they were doing. So you essentially have the manager getting upset at them and just telling them, do it. And they're doing it. And obviously they're moving forward, but not at the pace that that manager is wanting. So they're just getting upset about it. And instead of like stopping, all right, do you understand what we're supposed to be doing? Let me show you how to do it so that you can do it and be able to get better at it, instead of like, well, and you see this a lot. And I'm sorry, guys, if you're in a small organization, I know you see this all the time, and you may not do it on purpose, right? Because you think, I'm hiring people from the industry. I'm hiring people from XYZ company, so they should know how to do this. But Here's the thing. And Joey, I know you know this as well. Everybody does things differently. Yeah. And some people will not do certain tasks because the organization is so large that they can put that in a different department. They can compartmentalize it. There we go.
Yeah. Well,
they don't have to deal with it.
To add on to that, man, I think, I've said this before, and this was my mentality going into leadership was, I want to make everybody a mini Joey, right? I'm like, I want them to be just like me because I was successful. It got me to this position. So why not make other people like me? But what I soon realized was Joey plus Joey only equals Joey, right? That's there's no difference there. There's no difference maker. There's no innovation, right? It's just a whole bunch of me's doing the same thing. And that's how you hit your stall, right? That's how you stop moving forward, because you're just wanting to do things the same way every time, and there's no innovation.
Yeah, and you end up being the roadblock in that, because, well, this isn't how I would do it. So you still throw yourself in there, and it's, once again, one of those toxic leadership traits that you don't realize you're doing, because in your eyes, you're like, I'm training them to become better. I'm training them to get into the position that I got into, doing things that I did. But like Joey said, you're training them to be yourself. You're not training them to really focus on what strengths that they have and to work on those weaknesses. And when you're talking about, let's not even talk about people in leadership, right? You trying to train up leaders. Let's just talk about you trying to train up your team.
Right.
If you're just throwing them out into the wild and expecting them to do what you do or what you think the position should be doing without properly, and I'm not going to say, because I want to say vetting their knowledge, but most people are going to take that as in you're vetting them during the interview process. And there's two different types of things. You vet to get the kind of personality that will mesh with your organization during an interview.
Right.
When they're actually hired on, you vet their actual knowledge to know where they're at on the scale. If you were to say, for this position, you have to be probably like a 6 or a 7 to really be good at it. Where are you on that scale? And I won't know that if I'm just throwing you out there where you don't know the organization. You don't know the systems that we actually use. You don't know the processes we have. And I expect you to know that. Like, it takes 90 days to get somebody up and truly running without much intervention.
Right. Well, I mean, everybody knows that you were born a salesperson, right? It's either you were born a salesperson or you weren't, right? There's no teaching in between. I mean, like all of those skills, I'm being facetious there, but
Oh yeah. All those
skills,
sales managers, by the way, are pretty much out the door by now.
for real, man, it's like, it's just one of those things. Like we talk about just getting better a little bit more every day, right? And that's one of those things. That's how you learn to be a salesperson. Like as a coach, as a leader, like honestly, yes, you want to see your people succeed, but we all know you learn more from failure, right? From them falling flat on their face and helping them back up. And I said help them back up. I didn't say kick them while they're down, right?
Yeah, don't berate them. Don't talk trash.
Yeah, you got to make sure you handle that situation with care, right? Not with a pen and a paper to document it, or like I mean, maybe you can do that afterwards if it becomes a habit, but like I said, like you have to make sure that you're doing things you're leading with purpose, right? You're hoping, you're putting a situation in front of them that, hey, they may not know everything, right? They don't know how to handle that situation, but you're there to cushion that fall. You're there to help them back up one leg at a time. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that just reminds me of, can you imagine seeing somebody rating up in the first literally 2 weeks of starting a job? Like, I mean, it goes to show you, like, that's not a leader that's teaching them anything. That's just a pen pusher, right? And those are the type of jobs and positions that have constant churn. And that's the worst thing you can do as an organization. And that comes not from the front lines. Unfortunately, that's an issue from the top that's allowing that to happen, because they're disconnected and they're not doing the proper things to ensure that everybody is trained appropriately.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can just hear it in the back of my head. There's some people out there saying, well, that's the way I set an example. And that's the way, I prepare the what's to come, and while that may be true, they're preparing you for what may to come by them not being there.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying if somebody's feeling, the freaking till at the end of their shift, that's not a fireable offense. But I'm saying, like, okay, this person forgot to greet this individual when they walked in. Why the hell are you going to write them up in the first 2 weeks? Like, that's a training moment. That's a coaching moment. And coaching doesn't mean I'm going to write you up and this is going to go as strike one in your performance. Yeah. It's like,
I mean, could you imagine if you came in for an interview, right? And the manager that's going to be interviewing you was at the door greeting people and greeted you when you came in that door. Hey, welcome to so-and-so. If you have a seat over here, somebody will be right with you, right? And come to find out that's the person that's interviewing. And then you go and sit down with this person, like, wow, like that's the example this guy is setting. Like, come on, man. That's an amazing example, I think, that you can set. And that just goes back to what you're talking about. You have to showcase what you expect, right? That way you can teach them how to do it, right? And then expect them how to do it.
Yep. If you can't show your team what they're supposed to be doing, they're going to have a hard time, and it's only going to cause issues and friction, and you're not going to be able to move and pivot as fast as you need to, right? Like you're saying, Joey, show, it was what, show, train, and ask, or something along those lines. You literally just said it too.
Okay, and then teach them, right? And expect them to do it.
Yeah, it showed the behaviors, and we've talked about in previous episodes where there are differences in different organizations, and how well tuned their leadership is to not just the organization, but also to their people and to their customers. If you have leadership that's going around doing site visits, and this is a customer facing location, and they refuse to greet customers, if they refuse to acknowledge them and like, oh, no, I'm just visiting, those are the individuals, then you got an issue, right? Because that means your leadership from above doesn't value their team that's actually doing the work and doesn't value their customers. They're not treating them as guests, right?
Right.
And that's an organizational issue.
Right.
Okay? You can learn and you can showcase those great behaviors. And guess what? If the organization doesn't understand those values, that's not the place for you. You'll find an organization that will, and it could be from one of your guests, from one of your customers. They're like, why the hell are you in the shithole?
Look, I've seen that happen many times, but honestly, you know, like more times than not, they know a good person when they see a good person, right? And
Yeah.
and they know that knows how to do their job, right? And you know, it's so hard to see when a customer can acknowledge that, but maybe you know the manager can't, right? And we're looking at sometimes we're looking at it from a different lens, and sometimes when you at only that production point of view, right, and this performance point of view, you miss out on the things that that person's bringing to the table that you can maybe utilize to make everybody maybe a more even, you know, make it a playing even playing field. You know, there's benefits to all these different assets, right?
I don't know if I would say that they're kind of missing out and not paying attention to what they're doing.
Yeah, that's true, man. And you know, and just to touch on it a little bit more, right? When I say showcase, right, you show them how to do it, right, and you teach them how, but you don't expect them to do it the exact way that you do it, right?
No.
We've talked about scripting, right? We've talked about how it's a framework of how it needs to be done, right? Should be bullet points, not a word for word. This is how I expect you to do it because this is how it works for me. You know, they need to take what you learn, you know, add Joey plus Omar and make it fusion, whatever, however they do in Dragon Ball.
Yeah, and we're talking about dealing with people, right? If you got a process where you're going to go to this window on the computer, get to this program, yeah, that's a different kind of process. When we're talking about those frameworks, you got to showcase, you got to understand that they know what is expected to be done, then you train them to do it, and then you ask them to do it. You actually have them do it, and then after that, you can review what they know.
Right.
Almost think of it like a 4-step process, right? Show, train, do, review.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to trademark that, but
do a review. I like it, man. Like one thing comes to mind when I used to work with customers in the banking industry. It was one of the things that we were trying to do to set us apart. You know, most of the time you sit on one side of the desk. You got a computer, and you got 2 or 3 chairs on the other side. Like we wanted to greet our customers and pull the chair out. Like so, you know, we introduced it and everybody loved the idea. But then you had people walking around with one hand swinging a chair out and having that person sitting there. You know, it's not like how when you go to a fine restaurant where it's 2 hands, you let them sit, they're back under. It was definitely a learning process, but we had some fun with it. We're like, hey, look, we're gonna observe the best way to do this. Like honestly, none of us worked in the food industry, so like we were figure out, hey, what's the best way to do this? How does it look from the outside looking in, right? And we gave each other feedback, and man, it was awesome. You know, we did it when it was appropriate and things like that. It was too much fun.
Yeah, and you're showing it, right? As a leader, you're showing, you're inspecting what you expect. Right. That's an old saying I used to use all the time and still do. But used to use a lot with a leadership group that I was with. You got to inspect what you expect. If you don't, then if somebody tells you, yeah, we're doing it, but they're not doing it, obviously things are going to go awry. Okay. Yeah. But kind of going back, I want to kind of reverse a little bit to a comment you made earlier, right? About managers. And I use that word because they're not leaders. Managers that aren't really acknowledging the effort that somebody's going through to really hit the numbers that they're going after, because they're checking off those KPIs. They're checking off those metrics, right? So in their mind, okay, cool. I don't want to lose this person, so I'm going to do what I can to keep them here. Right. And it's so bad to do that because, all right, this is an individual you may or may not have trained. Somebody else may have trained them. And the chances are somebody else probably did train them, or they came from a different location, or they were with an organization before and are boomerang employee, and now they're back. And they know what they're doing in this respect. Right. So, okay, cool. Now, instead of helping to develop that individual, you're keeping them at a plateau that they've already got really good at, but there's not much growth anymore in there for them. So what do? They're going to end up leaving. So it's not so much about, okay, I'm going to train them and then I'm going to keep them here because I don't have the growth available at my location, or my organization is too small. We just don't have any room for growth. It's such a wrong mindset. And before we get into that mindset aspect, guys, if you haven't yet, hit that comment button, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let us know what your thoughts are. Keep us in the loop so you guys get some of these videos coming up and popping up for you guys as well. And feel free to share us to your friends and family. But the reason it's so bad is you say, okay, you've trained these people up, but now you're keeping them plateaued. If you don't allow for growth, then not only do you pigeonhole yourself as a bad manager, okay, because you're going to be known as a person that continuously loses good people, and your leadership's not going to be happy about that. But especially if you're a smaller organization and you're afraid of, well, if I invest into these people and they end up leaving, so what? So what if they leave? They're going to give you some really good times, right? And what I mean by that is they're going to give you great production, and they're going to stay longer because you're taking the time to help develop them, where they haven't had that in different organizations or ever. Right?
Yeah.
You guys, we stay longer when people invest in us, or we feel that they've been investing in us, even if it's against our best interest, right? We'll make it work somehow. And it's not a bad thing if they decide they want to stay, but your organization doesn't have room for them to grow. Let them grow. Let them find success elsewhere. You never know. Once that position opens up, they're going to want to come back because they love their time at that organization so much. That's where you have to look at it as a leader.
So we talked about a couple different people, right? We're talking about how to move a team forward, right? We talked about an entry-level salesperson, someone that wasn't born a salesperson, right?
Yeah.
We talked about maybe somebody that was your top salesperson, right? We talked about maybe growing leaders, right? But I think the same message applies to all three of them. First of all, you have to assess where that person is at.
Yep.
And you as a leader have to make sure that you are not expecting the person that doesn't know how to be a salesperson to be your top salesperson, right? There has to be an incremental increase in their performance, but you be the one that is pulling them along that process, right? And talking about the process, right? We talked about it, right? We first want to showcase how to do something, right?
Exactly.
There needs structure to that learning process so that you can take that person that doesn't know how to be a salesperson, and they're going to get to that top salesperson, whether it be in 6 months, could be 2 years, could be a number, it could be an endless timeline, right? But
it's like the saying, you got to walk the talk, right?
Right. Oh, yeah, most definitely, man. But the thing is also sometimes you do inherit those people that are really good salespeople, right? And you feel stagnant. Like, how can I help this person? There's always something to be learned, right? Whether it's you teaching them or them teaching you. Sometimes when somebody teaches something to somebody else, it's a learning process, right? I mean, it's a growth opportunity, right? And I think that's the thing that sometimes you have to make sure you understand that, hey, look, just because that person may know more than you, there's still room to grow, right? And if that's not their mindset, then you need to help them see that mindset, that there's still room to grow, but also you have to understand that as well.
Yeah. And like we said, that room may not be with your organization, may not be at your location. You cannot let that fear stop you from helping them grow.
Right.
Because once you see, because there's a lot of different things that'll happen. Not only can they grow within your organization, which leadership, your executive leadership is going to love, but that also showcases that you have the capabilities of being able to help and train, develop other people. So other people are going to want to go to your location. You'll be able to use that example in interviews, right? Like I've done it before in interviews where I've interviewed and I see a high quality candidate that I really want to come on board, but I know that maybe compensation wise, I'm going to be under what they want, right? And I know I'm not going to be able to meet that. So I showcase what has been done, where I've come, where I came from in the organization, where other people that I've brought in and developed and trained, where they were at in the organization, to, you know, my leadership, my executive leadership, how they came up through the organization and the time span that it could take, right?
Yeah.
Those are stories that you can be able to build and tell to others and help showcase. Because sometimes some people aren't necessarily really looking for that high compensation right away. They're looking to grow in an organization. So when we're talking about salespeople, you need to find out where they're at. Is it, I'm here because I want to make the most amount of money, or I'm here because I know I can make good money, but I also know that this is going to be a fast track pace to get me into some form of leadership.
Well, let's be honest, right? Okay. When you look at company A, B, and C, right? Or that's the name of your business, ABC, however you want to call it. Okay. You're not a bubble, right? Like just because they don't get promoted inside your bubble doesn't mean that they don't get promoted. What are the chances that the owner of your company, let's say it's a small business, knows the competition down the road, the owner of that company, right? And let's say they go to that company. Now they're talking to that owner, and that owner's like, oh my gosh, like you came from over there? Like, how did this happen? They're going to want to dig deep, figure out, hey, look, who developed this person? And next thing you know, like they're trying to come and recruit you, right? It's not, it's not just your bubble, right? It's the world, like the world around them. Like you can grow that person to another industry and they can come and recruit you. You're like, hey man, this company really needs help with what you have to offer. And I think you can be a really big asset for this company. And I've already talked to, you know, and they can come recruit you, right? It's not, you know, there's the possibilities are endless because of what your mindset is, right? The growth mindset that you have and you instill in others can pay really big dividends.
Yeah, well said, Joe. I could not agree even more. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't be stuck in this. Even if you think this is the organization I will retire from, that organization does not have your best interest long term. If they decide, like, unfortunately, right, all you guys have heard about the yellow trucking company, from essentially one day to the next, they're out, right? With how many tens of thousands of employees that have been working for them their entire career, pretty much left with almost nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Investing in yourself, investing in your team is honestly one of the best things you could do, because that skill set is something that you will be able to take on with you, and you're going to be able to do a lot more with those skills than anything you could ever imagine.
Right. And we're not preaching to be, you know, like how the NBA is nowadays, you know, jumping over all the all-stars, you know, like there is something to be said with loyalty and things like that, but don't be disloyal to yourself, right?
Well,
you have
on that topic, so it's funny you said that, right? Because they're like, yeah, there was that era where they were going through and building, right? They're trying to buy the best superstar team, to now going back to the actual roots of truly building teams back up from the ground up to make them contenders. And you've been seeing that in a lot of this, and especially in NBA, where a lot of the up and coming teams now, they've been developing over the years and they're not bought and traded, right? They started with that, you know, in the rookie season, and they've been going through and working as a team and getting better each season. And keep in mind, getting better doesn't mean that, oh, they're sitting on their asses playing video games and waiting for a game to pop up for them to actually get in the game. No, they're training during off season. They're training during in season. They're repeating the same plays over and over so that they have those plays down. They have those move sets down. And that's the exact same skill sets that we've been talking about that you want to develop for your team. You got the big picture game, and then you work on the small portions of that game.
Yeah.
Until they get better, and you focus on the areas where they need to focus on. If they're good here, cool. This is your area of focus. This is where we're going to focus on. We're going to help you improve. It's not, all right, yeah, your numbers are good or your numbers are okay, but they suck this month compared to last month. So I'm going to write you up on performance. That's not how you motivate people.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, on top of that, man, it's like, you're not going to bring an all-star in and just expect them to kind of
Carry
coach
the whole team.
Right. Well, you know, like they have growing to do as well.
Yeah.
Like they're going to come in with a certain performance, right? Like expectation of themselves, right? But it's your job as a leader to lead them to new things they've never tried, right? To help them grow, to help that person maybe grow the people around them, because maybe that's a skill set they haven't developed yet. You know, I mean, there's so many growth opportunities everywhere.
Yeah. Plus, you don't want to be left like LeBron's left some of his teams, making them wonder if he's going to stick around, making a big showcase out of it. You don't want to be held hostage by one employee.
Right. I mean, is that the truth, man? And you know, you don't want to bank your performance on one person as well, right? Because it can happen. You know, like that person could get recruited, and you know, they may see that it's greener on the other side, and they may go. But then where are you left, right? If that person hasn't shared anything with you, if you haven't observed anything that they do, and they haven't, you know, taught that to the people that are around them, and you haven't, you know, fostered an environment to do all that, then you're kind of stuck in the water, having to, you know, you might be stuck with a whole bunch of people that don't know how to sell now, right?
Yeah. And it's all because you weren't leading, you were just a manager.
Yeah. Right.
Like that makes it makes a big difference. I don't like when people say, yeah, I'm a manager, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, that might be your title, but what do you actually do? I lead a group of people. I help people become better. I teach people to be better, right? If you notice that those sentences each evolve little by little to give you a better understanding of what we actually do.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so important to focus on that training. It's so important to showcase what you actually want done and continuously do it, because the last thing you want to do is bring somebody else in and essentially slap them around because they're not doing the things the way you want them to, or doing the things that need to be done because nobody ever showed them.
Yeah.
You know, in their mind, they're doing it because they're seeing something happen. So they think they're moving forward, but they don't know what the expectations are because nobody's been clear about that, and nobody's been training them to do anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, so there's a saying, and I don't need, you had to help me with this, right? But we can say, I think it said, rules destroy creativity. And I believe it's leadership deserves innovation or creates innovation, or, you know, and basically what I'm trying to say is, let's say you have an A player, right? At one location, and they're with a person that is fostering, you know, growth, and they move to B location where it's a person that is very stern. You do things my way or it's the highway, right? Literally. And that person comes over there and they are not performing well, right? And you know, you can say it's a lot of these outside things, but honestly, it has a lot to do with the leader, right? So it's not always about the person. Like the person may be only capable of what you allow them to do.
Yeah. No, and that's very true. Because if you're constraining them, if you're not letting them succeed, right? Because you want to be rigid, this is the only way, we're not doing anything else, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, this small change we did at this other locations worked, and it's the reason why we've yielded better results, and we're still within the same framework. No. It needs to be done this way. This is the only way. Like that's old school mindset. That, don't get me wrong, that works on a freaking conveyor belt on an assembly line where literally this is the only way, unless you get a brand new machinery to come in to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about being on a conveyor belt, being in an assembly line. We're talking about literally working with people where obviously we know things change. We know people are temperamental. We know people have different personalities. They have different tastes, different likes, different approaches, right? Different conversation styles.
Yep.
You got to be adaptable and you got to be able to change and adapt. You can't be like, this is the only way. Like, it doesn't work that way. Okay.
Yeah.
You could have your sales process. Your sales process is a framework. It is not a rigid design where it has to be this, this, and this. And I'll get people that come to enjoy. This is true. People will come to me and be like, well, if they just follow this script and do it this way, it succeeds because people have succeeded. I'm not saying it doesn't. I've said this before. Some form of training is better than nothing. You will see if 1 or 2% success improvement is what you're aiming for, and you get that from some type of training or some type of program, then that is a success.
Yeah.
We're not talking about just seeing a 1 or 2% improvement year over year. We're talking about seeing 10, 20, up to 50% improvement from your sales team, current or new, compared to what you've previously done.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff we're talking about being able to do with your sales team when things are done appropriately. I'm not going to say the right way because there is no, and Joey, you know this, there is no right or wrong way to do certain things.
Right.
Okay? But there are better frameworks than other frameworks. There are better ways to approach certain situations than other ways.
Right.
It's simple as that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talk about giving people the autonomy to do things a certain way, but yes, integrity has to be a message that you convey, right?
Yes.
Ethics have to be a message that you convey. That has to be your baseline of your communication, right? It can't just be.
Man, I bet those car people watching us right now are churning in their seat.
It can't be one of those things where it's like, hey guys, we're going to do it this way. And then, like right before you end, okay, by the way, we're not going to take advantage of anybody. Right? Like, it can't be one of those things. You know what I mean? Like, and it has to be in every message that you convey to do things right, to trust people. But like we said, inspect what you expect, right? And what you expect should be integrity, should be ethically doing things, right? And then on top of that is being innovative, right? In a in an ethically friendly way, right? To the business, to the customers, to yourself. Like, I'm always that person. I'm never going to take advantage of somebody because I'm not going to be able to sleep at night.
Yeah. Well, let me throw this curveball at you, brother, since you brought this up.
Okay.
You got somebody on your team, their numbers are phenomenal, and you're like, all right, Smith, let me talk with you real fast. What are you doing? You're doing great. Like, what's caused the change? And you find out it's something unethical. What do you do?
Man, you got to have a conversation, man. And it's got to be a serious conversation. It's got to be on point. It's like, well, why are you doing it that way? Like, like what has led you to do things that way? And, sometimes you get the response, well, so-and-so taught me to do it this way. So-and-so said, hey, that's the only way you're going to survive. And, because obviously it should be a learned behavior that they learned. Well, like, hey, how about we go about it this way, trying to do things in a ethically way, right? To make sure we get away from doing it that way. Maybe you didn't know it was the wrong way, right? I mean, maybe they do know, whatever the case is, right? You got to put your best foot forward. So hopefully they put their best foot forward and go forward doing the right things, right?
But why is it important for you? Maybe not even as an organization, right? Say this is a one-off. Why is it important for you as a location to make sure that your ethics, your morals are on point?
Because you know what? There's that leader in the background that's a couple highways over that's be like, look, man, I know this guy's doing things the wrong way because I trained him to do things the wrong way. But I was there, like, there's that person, right? And that stuff spreads like wildfire. And that is a reflection on you, right? Not a reflection on that person. That's a reflection on you as a leader.
Yeah. Well, for me, the biggest thing too would be all the upset customers and then the bad reputation that the location would end up getting because of this one individual. Even though the individual is no longer there, because it was so bad or because it caused such an issue with these people, that issue and that feeling amongst customers, you all been there. I literally just got off the phone with the freaking Xfinity, and that's a completely different topic. We all know they're the devil, right? That just their systems suck. Okay. But it's a bad situation to put your location through because of one bad apple, or not even a bad apple, just a bad process. Because here's the thing, that unethical way that they're going about it, finding out what it is, breaking it down, you can become ethical by actually ensuring that they talk about and disclose what they're doing. Say they're saving people money. Cool. Don't just leave it, yeah, I'm gonna save you money and that's it, and then do a bunch of stuff. And the customer be like, what the hell is all this on my account now? You know, it's like letting them understand what the process is, why we're doing it. And then if they still want to do it, cool. Yeah, sign me up. That sounds great. Let's do it that way.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
and then you get the good reputation.
I'm telling you, man, we can spend a lot of time because, I'm sure being in retail, you run across people doing things unethical, but that is something you definitely need to address when you're trying to move your team forward. But like I said, as a recap, right? And we're coming here to try and give you ammo of how to move your team forward, right? No matter where they are in their sales process. But like I said, you have to know where they are on that sales process, right? Before we go a little bit further, we just want to make sure, hey, put your comments, your thoughts in the comment section. Subscribe. Give us some ideas about different situations you all want to talk about. But like I was saying, right? So you have to make sure you know where your people are to be able to grow them from where they are, right? You can't grow them sideways, right? Nobody wants a sideways tree unless you're called. But anyway,
that tree will fall over eventually, unfortunately.
Right. You just got to take a little bit of time, have the integrity, have the patience, but you got to be there along the way to coach them up, right?
Yes. And that's the important thing, coaching them up.
Yeah, most definitely, and like I said, utilize that person that knows more than you, because I know some of you are in that situation where they may be a better salesperson than you. They may know specs off the back of their hand better than you, and put them to good use for yourself. Make them be part of your leadership, right? Find different ways to utilize them and challenge them to grow in a way that they haven't been before, right? And then keep going off of there, man. But observations are key. We've talked about that before, but just keep it going.
Yeah, observations are a tool to help you in the training, coaching, and developing portion.
Right.
And if you're not using them, that's a very big misstep as a leader. Okay. We won't delve into that today because we can do plenty of topic conversations on observations alone. But guys, keep doing what you're doing. If you're stepping up, watching our podcast, we know that you're looking at and you are doing what you can to become a better leader for tomorrow, not just for yourself, but also for your teams. So be sure, just like Joey said, comment, let us know what your thoughts are, what you thought about what we talked about. If you got your own tidbits you want to share, feel free to do that. And be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so that you don't miss our episodes going forward.
All right, guys. See y'all next time.
All right. Take care, guys.
And that brings us to the end of today's Obvious Leadership episode. Remember, every great leader starts with one step, and you're already on your way. Small changes lead to significant impact. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, and remember that leadership is the key to unlocking extraordinary results.